to see all of you back. Yeah, okay, I think we are live now. Okay. Good to see all those who have joined us. Yeah. Okay, and just this today's session will be mostly on YouTube. We won't have, because this is essay writing, we won't have a test or anything of that sort. I'll give you a test essay topic and I want you to actually write it, but I won't be able to judge it nor like check it as such. But I'll give you the basic ideas of how to write an essay, what you should keep in mind, the do's and don'ts, and I'll give you two test topics. One, I'll explain how you should actually go about it, and one is for you to attempt it as such. So most of the work will be on YouTube. So good to see all of you guys who are joining us. Those who are joining us, please like the stream. Hi Aditya, hi Heisenberg, okay. Hi all those who are joining us, just put in a hi so that I know whoever has joined, and please like the stream because it helps us reach more students and it makes us more motivated to hold more of these streams. So please like the stream, please share with, if anybody is preparing for ZAD, please share it with them, and I hope you guys are well prepared for ZAD. Also let me know how your preparation is going. Any roadblocks that you are experiencing, any issues that you are actually experiencing with your ZAD preparation, let me know that also. So hi Abhishek, hi Yukti, hi Dinesh, good to see all of you guys. Hi Abhinav, hi Surendra, hi Anjali, hi Meher and Aditya. Good to see all of you guys in, and good to see that you guys are taking even essay writing as seriously. See, finally our end goal is to actually get an XLRI seat, and for that you have to think ahead, you have to even prepare for essay question as such. So all of us, all of you guys, good to see you back. I see a lot of people joining us and not as many likes, so I would appreciate if all of you guys can like this stream. It would motivate us and it would mean a lot to us if you like the stream. So good to see all of you guys join in. Hi Malika. Okay, can we get us that cons practice PDF? Nishita, we'll try to make one. Just try to, we'll actually see. It's mostly similar to CAT quant. Whatever is the difference, I'll try to actually ask them to compile some PDF for that. Okay, so thank you. We'll definitely send one out for that. Again, it's very difficult to say, Yukti, because it changes quite a bit when it comes to that. Depends on how the DM section is, how easy or tough the DM section is. DM section cutoffs can be single digit, they can even be upper double digits, like tens, they can be like 17 to 19 also if it's an easy DM section. So you can't really say, most of the time it is single digit, but you can't really say what would be an ideal score in such a situation as such. Okay, so good to see all of you guys join in. Guys who are joining in, please like the stream. So today there won't be a test. I'll be on YouTube only, so there's no need to go to this to any kind of website. There won't be a test. Still, I'll be giving you an essay topic, and I want you to actually try writing out an essay. So I'll give you one essay topic and we'll try to write out an essay together so that I give you an idea of how to prepare for it, how to actually section it into 3 paragraphs and how to go about it. And then at the very end, I'll give you one essay topic that I want you to actually write by yourself. I won't be able to check your essays as such, but it would mean if you get that writing practice and if you can show it to somebody who can evaluate it for you, it would mean a lot. That kind of feedback is very necessary when it comes to actually evaluating your ability to write an essay. So good to see all of you guys in, and let's start. Yeah, 33 plus is actually a decent score, Avinash, but try to see where you can improve. More than fixating on the score, just see where you could have actually improved in the mock itself. Quant, VARC, LR, areas where you should definitely be scoring better. You can try to see where did I make a mistake here, where did I make a mistake here. DM is up in the air, but all other places you should actually go through like a fine-tooth comb and see where you could have actually made, where you could have improved as such. So good to see all of you guys in. We'll be starting now. And those who have just joined us, I see a lot of people who have joined us. Can you guys please like the stream, and can you guys please share the stream with whoever is preparing for CAT, for that. So as you know that essay has made a reappearance in the XAT exam. Earlier it had been dropped for XAT 2021. Because of the pandemic, they were not having the essay question. Even before that, in 2019 only it was dropped. 2019, 2020 it was not there, and now it has suddenly made a reappearance. So we have to actually think that they are serious about having people who are able to articulate and express themselves. This might be something to do with their the feedback they might have gotten from professors that, okay, students are not writing properly. Maybe we should reintroduce the essay questions to actually filter out students who are not able to write properly. So it's definitely, if it has made a reappearance, it would have some impact on your personal interview process as such. This is not an easy thing to actually assess. One of the reasons probably why it was dropped is that reading 80,000 essays is not a trivial task. But now they are planned to just read your essays if you are going to get shortlisted. So that kind of eases their task quite a bit. So the format is going to be that you'll have an essay in the second part of that. So you have your second part of that. For 2019-20, it was basically just 15 minutes and you had to answer 25 GK questions. So now you have 10 extra minutes and you also have to write one essay answer as such. So you can take more than 10 minutes, you can take 15 minutes also to write the answer, but you have to also solve the GK paper as such. So together this GK answers as well as your essay answers, essay writing setup is going to be a factor for the evaluation for personal interview, to check how well you write and how aware you are of what is happening around you. So in a way, I feel that this is going to actually set the tone of your personal interview. If your goal is to convert your XLRI seat, you should take this part, second part also as seriously as you take the first part. Do not take it lightly. Prepare for it, be well prepared for it so that you can write a good essay and you get a good GK score, so that when it comes to when you sit for your interview, you have the best chance of converting that particular seat. Okay, so good to see all of you guys in. So we have like 125 people joining us. So I want to see all of you guys, please like the stream. It would mean a lot to us if all of you guys like the stream. And do we have to write it on a sheet of paper or will we have to type? I'm actually not sure what their process is going to be like. They haven't put it on the notification, but my guess would be typing it out rather than writing. Like GMAT requires you to actually type it out. That would be my guess as such. And I'm not really sure of that. But you can think of it that you will have a like something around 10 minutes to do that. Think of it in this way. I would actually think that prepare for writing it out. Typing would actually have lesser, I actually think maybe prepare for both eventualities. Essentially, most of you would not have the writing practice, so having that writing practice would also mean very, very important in actually preparing for the essay question. See, remember that a lot of students have been using just computers for all of their work, all of their studies, which means that most of the students do not have the actual writing practice, and it's important to actually have that writing practice. So one of the things that I would actually suggest in preparation for this essay question is that start reading up general knowledge part. So op-eds, newspapers, having basically like if you have sports sections, what is happening in politics, what is happening in terms of elections, civics, any changes in government initiatives, in rules, in laws, all of those things you should be aware of. You should be able to, like month by month, you should know the top highlights of events that have occurred per month. That is the first step when it comes to preparation for this entire section, not just the essay, the entire section with GK as well as this section, essay writing. Again, the specific preparation for essay writing would be reading opinion articles. Reading opinion articles would get you into the zone of writing with a flow as such. Your essay should have a flow, your essay should have a starting point, some arguments and some conclusion. That should be the ideal way in which an essay should flow. If you read a lot of opinion articles, it will be clearer or it will be easier for you to actually do that. And the last thing I would actually suggest is have a writing habit. Be in the process of actually sitting down and writing, because most students have lost the writing habit. They have lost the ability to actually sit down and write with a pen and paper. So actually reconnect with that particular writing habit and know like how to actually do that in a like for an extended period of time, if you have to write a page in a short period of time, you should also have that writing habit as such. So these are the things that I would suggest that you have in preparation for your ZAT essay. Now, many people, when they see the ZAT essay, are completely thrown by the topic. So here are some of the previous year topics, and if you guys see the topics as such, you will see that most of the previous year topics are slightly abstract. Like if you just go like the topic by each of the topics, for example, from 2018, the 2018 topic is ethical practices and sustainability, do they coexist? It's a arbitrary, kind of an abstract topic, not very clear what is going on. Globalization and jingoism always coexist. Technology and nature are natural enemies. Listening is a dying art. We hardly listen to understand. We only listen to refute or reply. So the key thing to remember in ZAT essay writing, this is the most important step, which if you don't do, you're going to have a hard time writing an essay. If you do that step properly, you will have a much easier essay writing this as such. The most important thing to do when it comes to ZAT essay writing is to reframe the topic as such. You have to reframe something which is abstract into something that is concrete. So you have to connect something which is given as a open-ended topic into a more close defined topic as such. So if it is given ethical practices and sustainability, do they coexist? You have to basically say how ethical practices basically related to social justice, to equality, would require higher consumption, and especially for poorer countries, and that goes against sustainability in many ways. But also many of the practices of third world countries are actually pro-sustainability. So it is not necessarily a either or kind of a scenario. In many cases they actually can coexist. In some cases where consumption has to clearly exist, they would be at odds with each other, but that is not necessarily the case. So always you have to kind of define it more closely, and then you can go and write a proper essay. If you leave it open-ended, it becomes very difficult. Mostly what you should try to do is connect it with something which is happening in real world, with a real world context, and then you can write a decent essay. So for example, consider globalization and jingoism always coexist. So what would you consider would be a context for that? So context for that would be basically, like say if you consider different national movements around that time. So for example, Brexit movement, you had like the Donald Trump's election. All of these were fairly jingoistic movements as such, where they said that, okay, there's the idea of American exceptionalism, there's the idea that UK should not be part of the European Union, and they were clearly anti-globalization movements as such. So you consider that as the concrete context. And then you say that, okay, in this context, what does it mean when you say that globalization and jingoism can exist? Then you say that many of these jingoistic politicians are in fact globalization players. For example, Trump owns factories in China. He actually manufactures in this. Many of the Brexit, for example, UK, requires most of its products to be made outside of UK. So globalization and jingoism, or for all its jingoistic positioning, you require globalization. So connect it to some real life thing and then reframe that particular topic. The first step and the most important step when it comes to that is to reframe the topic. If you don't reframe the topic, you're going to find a very abstract topic and you're not going to have a good hold on it. So that is the most important thing to do. So let me actually begin by seeing some of the doubts that you have. Yeah, exactly. So Utkarsh, you're right. See, when you actually have, when you start thinking, okay, what does globalization mean? What does jingoism mean? Then you consider, okay, these are two opposition factors in the way it is portrayed in politics. But in actuality, they are not opposite factors that oppose each other as much, because behind the scenes, both of them actually cooperate with each other. So once you start connecting it with a real life concrete example, you get a better hold on what to write. If you just consider the terms, the abstract terms, globalization, jingoism, then you will be kind of like, you'll get like barely a paragraph out. But if you consider that how it actually played out, and even just one of the two things like Brexit, then you can actually say, okay, this is context, this is what happened. In my opinion, jingoism should not be a factor when you consider trade deals or how you actually interact with the global economy. And then you conclude saying that jingoism is not is a hamperer for globalization, and it is not a productive force in the world's economy. So you have one conclusion at the end of it. So always connect it to something concrete, and then you get a flow, you get a proper essay. So I'll tell you how exactly to structure your essay also, but the step number one always is reframe the topic given. The topic is going to be abstract, the topic is not going to make a whole lot of sense. You have to essentially connect it with something real, concrete, and that is reasonable and sensible. So think of it that this is going to be something that is like not very clearly defined, hazy and vague, and you have to make it more articulate, clear and defined. And once you have a clearly defined topic, it becomes easier for you to write about it. Okay. Can you give us examples of how to start the essay? I'll just do that, okay? And I'll be telling you exactly, I'll give you one example topic and how to actually reframe the topic, how to start the topic, what should be given in arguments, and how you should actually structure the essay. I'll tell you about that. So Bhargav is asking, I need to know if GK will be considered in percentile calculation. No, it won't be considered in percentile calculation. Neither would essay be considered in percentile calculation. They'll be considered in the personal interview phase, where basically once you go in for the interview, they'll have assessed your essay, they will have assessed your GK score, and those will be considered as inputs in judging you as during the interviews as such, considered as inputs in considering how aware you are, how articulate you are, how well can you write. All of these are factors that these guys need to know when they are selecting you. What if one doesn't know the meaning of any word about which the topic is stated? So you will know at least the context in which those words are used. So for example, even if you don't know jingoism, you at least know the association or word association between jingoism and patriotism, where you know that okay, jingoism is a far end of patriotism, or patriotism is not jingoism. That kind of context you already know. And you know what globalization is. Almost everybody knows what globalization is. So reframe it into something that you know and understand. See, the point of this essay is that they want to see whether you are able to think clearly and write clearly. You should write grammatically correct English. You should have a coherent flow of thought. That is one of the biggest factors that is considered in this essay. They need people who are able to write. So if you think of it from the point of view of the professors, if you're a ZAT professor, you don't want a student who is unable to write even like a paragraph coherently, who makes mistakes while writing. So that is one of the reasons why this essay is there. So whether you have understood the topic perfectly or not is less important in how well you can write and how coherently you can write. That is far more important. The topic is the starting point, you reframe it into whatever you want and then start. Even if you understand nothing of it also, that is fine. If you're as close to the topic as possible, that's a very good thing. If you don't understand anything of it, still reframe it into something that you understand and start writing. Don't actually think that if I don't understand the topic, I'll not write anything. The point is that they want to know that you are able to write coherently and in a grammatically correct manner. So write something even if you don't understand all the terms in the particular topic. Okay, good to see there are like over 200 people on the stream. So guys, can you please like the stream? And if you're preparing for that, can you please share it with anybody else who is also preparing for that? Okay. Okay. So also one more thing that I would actually say is that the first thing that you have to remember, all of these are slightly open-ended, you reframe it, and when you are starting, okay, before you start writing, have this flow in mind. Always whenever you write a ZAT topic, you have to have 3 sections defined. The first section is your, Yeah, so the first section that you have to have clear is your structure. So the first section will be context, the next section will be your arguments, and then finally you will have a conclusion that has to be given. So whatever you have actually before you start writing, you should even know your conclusion as such. So have this rough structure in mind that what is the context, real world context I'm going to connect it to. So for example, in case of globalization and jingoism, you'd say that the context is of Brexit and of like say the rise of Trump. So give that context saying that in our world where Trump has been re-elected and Brexit has happened, this is the case that you are currently seeing. Then give your arguments for or against. And before you actually start writing also, you should know that you're for this particular brand of politics or this particular opposition to globalization, or you're against it. So you should have your end conclusion ready before you start writing. If you don't have it ready, what happens often is that people have this confused flow through the for and opposed arguments. Okay, they say that, okay, for you have XYZ arguments, against you have ABC arguments. And together they are not able to conclude either way. You should not do that. Have a clear conclusion in mind, and once you have that clear conclusion in mind, select arguments that actually build that case. You are not supposed to write an analytical essay, you are supposed to write a persuasive essay. So remember that you are supposed to convince the author of your particular point of view. So a coherent essay would basically be one where you start with the context, give the most pertinent arguments that you are going to make in your favor of your overall point. You might give counter arguments also. In fact, a balanced perspective would have counter arguments. But it should not be that, okay, there are 3 points for, 3 points against, I'm stuck in a no man's land. That should not be the structure or the format of your essay. You should say that, okay, there are 3 points for, 1 point against, but on the balance of all of it, I feel that position A is a better position to take. So always have the end goal in mind before you even start writing. Always start with setting the context. This is what is happening in our real world. Then you give your body, which is that arguments for, arguments against. And the final one would be, on the balance of all things considered, I feel that the right thing to do in this particular case is X. Always make sure that you have time to write down the conclusion. A lot of people fail to write the conclusion because they don't leave any time for it. They keep on writing, okay, there's this point, then there's that point also, then there's this point also. Always remember, you have to write your conclusion, you have to get that conclusion in, okay? And make sure that you leave yourself some time to actually write your conclusion in. Okay, so these are the basic things that you have to keep in mind when you're writing your essay as such. We'll go through one mock essay together, so that once you go through that mock essay together, you have some idea of how to actually prepare for something like this. And after that, I'll give you one actual essay for you to write and test yourself. For now, you can write it on a pen and paper, but also practice typing it out so that you are more accustomed to having both formats as such. Okay, so let's get ready with the first one. Okay, so over here I'm just going to give you some time to actually try to write this essay on your own. Think of the context in which you can actually connect this. Think of the arguments you can make for and against, and also think of a conclusion that you can make on the basis of this particular topic. I want 3 clear ideas of what you're going to write in context, what you're going to write in body in terms of arguments, and how you're going to conclude it. If you have that ready, that would be the first big step in essay writing. Okay, let me try to see some of the questions that are there. Hi Shivam, if you want, you can connect this also with the events of the last 1 year that you're referring to. So again, they won't actually give you that, okay, talk about COVID or talk about the pandemic. They will give you a broad overarching this, and you can connect it to anything. You can connect it to India in sports, improving sports facilities in India, or you can connect it to COVID or the pandemic, or you can connect it to the health infrastructure in India. You can connect it to whatever context you want. The context can be different for different people, but essentially whatever context you connect it to, you should have a very good hold on the arguments you can make in that particular context. So if the context that Shubham might connect it to might be different from what Bhargavi might connect it to, but you should be able to, given a context, you should be able to make proper arguments and a proper conclusion. The context is up to you, the real world connection is up to you, but the arguments and the conclusion should be good. That's the only requirement as such. See, Ishika, I would actually you have to actually have a proper conclusion. Having a I would actually suggest against having like, okay, there are 3 for, 3 against, because then you're not able to conclude convincingly. And a good conclusion would show clarity of thought, clarity of vision and thinking as such. Neither side conclusion shows a lack of clarity of thought. So I would always say that even if you give counter examples, one side should outweigh the other, because it shows that you are able to make a decision, you are able to have some amount of clarity of thought of what is better. If you are just listing out arguments without concluding, it doesn't look good for you in terms of your ability to make decisions or having ability to understand and decide in a particular situation, which as a manager you ought to be able to do. Okay. Can we make some story personal or societal? No, Shivanshu, don't do that. Again, this is not a story as such. It is mostly, see, they are looking for managers. They are looking for people who are able to analyze and decide. They're not looking for like literature writers. So they want somebody who is able to analyze, argue and decide. So all 3 aspects should be there. If you write a story, the analysis is not there, the decision making capacity is not shown. So those are the capacities that you need to show in this particular format. If you actually don't just write a story, or if you don't conclude, or if you give all sides of the coin, you're not showing a particular managerial ability that is needed. Yeah, Nishita, you can disagree, you can go against the topic, you can even say that compassion and calamity do not go together. You can definitely disagree, as long as you are able to make proper arguments and a proper conclusion. That is what is more important. Agreeing with the topic and giving a weak conclusion, weak arguments would not help your case. If you are able to give strong arguments and a strong conclusion, it will help your case. So you can definitely disagree with the topic. Okay, so I hope just let me know how you actually guys would actually attempt this particular example that I've given. Also, those who have joined us, it would mean a lot to us if you like the stream. I see over 200 people on the stream, so just let us know that if you like the stream, please like the stream on YouTube so that we reach more students. Okay, just let me know how you would actually start with the context of this one. What context would you go to in this particular example? So, as somebody had mentioned earlier, Shubham, I think, where they said that, okay, it's likely to have some kind of a pandemic theme as such, which is true. There might be a overall pandemic or economic recession kind of theme to it. And this is something that actually I was hinting at with this particular topic. So basically, one context that I can actually connect this with is basically the context of the pandemic. And instead of writing about compassion and calamity going together, I would actually reframe this and say that compassion should and ought to follow calamity. So essentially, I reframe this and say that I'll actually use a different color. Okay. So I'd rather say that compassion is a successor or a should come after calamity. Should follow calamity. I would reframe this particular topic as that compassion should follow calamity. And I'd give the real world context of the pandemic. I'd say that our current context is that we are living in a world where most of the systems are shut down because of the pandemic. We have seen extended periods where small business owners could not work, where people, the regular livelihood of many people was affected. Many people lost both of their parents, many lost one parent. A lot of people's lives was disrupted. Now, when the entire world has gone through such a big shock as this, it is time for us to actually rethink and be more compassionate. And you can actually take this in multiple directions. So you can say that compassion should follow calamity. So our calamity, the world is currently facing a calamity of a medical nature as such. Now, compassion should follow in many ways. For example, compassion should follow by considering how we treat people who are daily wage earners. For example, we should consider how the different people who actually worked during the pandemic, whether it was the healthcare workers or even like the sanitation workers who were required to actually go to work even during the pandemic, how we treat them. We should also rethink how our health systems work, how they work for the poor. It's been exposed how our health systems are faulty. We should consider how education works, because we have seen that during the pandemic, many people actually were not able to continue with their education. So compassion should follow calamity in the way we compassionately take a look at many of these sectors, how we pay people, how we educate people, how we take care of the health of people. So I am reframing firstly, because this entire topic initially did not make sense to me, that compassion and calamity go together. No, they don't go together naturally. But if I reframe it and say that compassion should follow calamity, now I can write a sensible essay based on it. I'll give the context of the pandemic, then I'll make arguments saying that why we need to be compassionate in these particular times. Many people are suffering, many people have lost their livelihoods, many children have lost their parents. Now is the time for us to be compassionate to all of these people. And then finally you would conclude that this should be a wake-up call about how we treat our own health and about how we treat many members of the society. You could even consider this with the overall context of health as such, and how this is connected. Like you'd say that, okay, the pandemic has exposed the underlying issues of mental health which have been stigmatized for long, and now many people have started to come out and because of the pandemic admit to the fact that they face anxiety, fear, many issues or depression because of being closeted in for so long. Now you should say that, okay, this should be destigmatized, you should have better treatments for it, you should have a better, more compassionate outlook towards these issues, and then finally conclude by saying that, okay, we should take this calamity as an opportunity to regroup and be more compassionate about XYZ. So that is basically your structure. Your structure should be connected to a specific context. Even when you're writing the context, you should have your conclusion in mind. My conclusion is that, say, this pandemic should teach us that we should take mental health more seriously and we should treat people suffering from mental health issues more compassionately. That is my conclusion at the very start of it. Then I say what are the arguments for and against. So the context is that, okay, this has exposed a underlying crisis of mental health and there's been long associated stigma with it, and now more people are talking about it. Then you give your arguments for that, okay, many people find it difficult to talk about it, but this pandemic has given us this opportunity, what should be done? And then finally you conclude by saying that we should be more compassionate about it. Or it can also be that, okay, let's consider those who are at the marginal sections of our society. So my conclusion before writing this essay is that this pandemic has exposed that we are underpaying people who are at the marginal sections of the society. For example, if you say the sanitation workers, our domestic workers, and this pandemic has exposed how we are not paying a lot of people whom we depend on for our daily existence and functioning. Like for example, a lot of people suddenly realize that many of the people who are absolutely necessary for survival in the pandemic were not necessarily the best paid employees as such. So you then realize and say that, okay, it's time we rethink who is critical, what kind of professions are critical and how we should pay for them. So you have that conclusion in mind, then you write the context, then you write your arguments, and then you write the conclusion. Okay, so I hope that this is clearer. Let me see, like what would you guys have written in this particular case? So we have, can we write our own experiences in the essay? You can give that as an argument. You can say, for example, that I personally experienced how many people kept their own health and family welfare at bay and helped out people or volunteered. That is something you can write as a evidence for a point. But the essay should not be just about you or your life experiences, but a broader point as such. You are talking about a broader topic rather than just limited to your experiences. Your experiences can definitely add to the evidence, but it should be a broader point than just your experiences as such. Let's see who else. If anybody give any point as such. Yeah, 250 words, and you have to write within that. Let's assume that you have to, if you have 250 words, start with a decent context and assume that you need some 20 words for the conclusion, say around 60 words for the context. Then you have a idea of how many words you can actually put for the argument as such. You need not count exactly. 250 words is long enough. 250, it's unlikely that in that kind of a, unless you are like just going on a crazy rant, it's unlikely that you will exceed 250 words. But just think of it in the terms that, okay, I need like 50 words or 60 words for context, I need 20-30 words for conclusion, and the rest I have for my arguments as such. You can, adversity brings humanity closer, which is very good actually. It's a reframed, Utkarsh, that's a very good reframe this. And actually you can actually reframe it and say it in another way. For example, another way which you could actually connect it to a different context would be that, for example, consider Japan. Japan has underwent many calamities. When I actually think of calamities, I actually think of Japan. And in many ways, for example, every time they have undergone a calamity like that, they have regrouped as a society and come out stronger. For example, after the Second World War, when they were completely devastated, they came back together, their culture survived, and they came back and built a stronger society after it. You could see that sense of that adversity brings out the best in a civilization. In many cases, for example, after the tsunami and the nuclear disaster also, you could see that belief in doing better actually got reaffirmed. So you can consider multiple contexts, not just the context of pandemic. In fact, if you don't want to talk about the pandemic, you might actually stand out, because 90% of those who would reframe it would connect it to the pandemic. If you consider a different context, you might actually stand out as such. Not necessary. If you write a coherent essay, you need not stand out. Just a coherent essay would be good enough. Think of this as a hygiene test. Hygiene test basically means that they need somebody who can write decently well. That acing it might help you a bit, but not doing well enough would only hurt you. So just think that I have to do a decent enough job. I have to write a coherent essay, context, arguments, this grammatically correct, coherent, make clear points, and a good conclusion. That should be your aim throughout the essay. Standing out, writing something completely abstract or out of the ordinary should not be the goal, because then you're then the risk is that you might actually end up with something which is not coherent. I would go against the argument, calamity related to destruction, whereas compassion provides love, care provides examples. So that is true actually, Nishita. That is also a good this. So you can so start off with the conclusion that calamity and compassion are not correlated. Compassion is something which is has to be a longer lasting one. That compassion should not come in ebbs and flows. It should not be in response to calamity, but it should be a longer form, this which informs your society's choices in the long term, not just in the short term after a calamity. So that would also make sense. Now think of your conclusion, then say the context. Okay, in pandemic everybody is thinking and everybody is more compassionate, but this compassion needs to last a longer term, and it should not just be a knee-jerk reaction to the current adversity that we are facing. In the longer term, our compassion should not be a accompaniment or an immediate reaction to adversity, but it should be a way that we are attuned to think as such. So that also would be a good way of arguing. So good, I think most of you got the essence of how to argue. Most of you guys got this, that you reframe the argument, think of your conclusion, then based on the conclusion, think back the context, think back the arguments. So now I'm going to actually give you a essay, and I want you to actually write down a proper, sit with a pen and paper and write down a proper essay as such, with the topic header and with the context. What would you write as context, what would you write as the main arguments, and what would you write as your conclusion. Remember, follow the same this. I want 3 proper paragraphs, and try to stick to 10 minutes while you are writing it. So sit now and try to finish this in 10 minutes. I'll be giving the topic now, and just try to think of the context, what would you write, the arguments that what you would write, and the final list. The more writing practice you get, the better it is. Essentially, if writing it out properly, okay, having a clarity of exactly what you're going to write is more important than just the points or overall topic what you're going to write, because a lot of people have lost this touch of writing. If you're working as an engineer or an accountant or anything of that sort, when was the last time you wrote an essay? Hardly ever, right? So now this is the time, practice at least 5 essays before CAT. You have, before that, you have the previous year's topics that I just gave. In case you guys missed that, or it was over here, I want you to write each of these topics plus this topic that I'm going to give now. So I'm going to give now. I hope you have a pen and paper ready. And whatever doubts you have, please post it in the interim. I'll try to solve all of them. Okay, so I hope everyone is ready with a pen and paper. And here you go. I need 3 proper paragraphs, and I need a proper conclusion, like show decision-making ability to analyze a situation, and ability to connect it to a real-world context. Okay, so let's go. So consider this your topic. Okay guys, I hope you guys try to actually attempt this. It is important that you have writing practice. You have the ability to actually write full sentences. Your internet lingo will not do. Write full grammatically correct sentences. Start from today. Even in your conversations, do not do go for proper sentences and not short forms, or not this. Try to put full sentences. It's important that you get into that habit before 2nd Jan. Okay guys. Thank you, Karthik. I hope you are you benefit from this, and you keep practicing. 42 marks. Yeah, 42 marks would be a good score as such, Akash. But more than that, focus on, see, if you get 42 marks, even at 42 marks, you have to say that, okay, where did I lose marks? Where did I lose marks in X, Y, and Z? Try to improve over that rather than just focusing on how many marks are enough. That is going to change. If it's an extremely easy ZAT, you will have a higher cutoff, higher overall cutoff also. If it's a difficult ZAT, it would be lower than 42. So instead of focusing on a score, focus more on what areas you need to improve on. It's only till Jan 2nd, just focus on just improving rather than, okay, am I just well enough? Don't try to hit the bare minimum, try to excel. So I hope you guys were able to make some sense of it. I'm going to leave you to this topic. But before I go, I hope that you have I'll give you some hints of what kind of context you can connect this to. So, for example, if you consider the topic, man is the noblest of all animals, separated from law and justice, and he is the worst. So basically, this topic is about law and justice. You can consider that in many ways. You can split this and reframe this in many ways. One reframing would be that man is just above the animals. The only thing that makes him above the animals is the concept of law and justice. Or you can reframe this as say that law and justice are the essential pillars of our civilization. Without it, there won't be any civilization. Now you can reframe it in many different ways. But suppose I consider the reframing that law and justice are the essential pillars of our civilization. Now, what kind of a real context can I connect this to? I'll actually consider the cases when law and justice were not served, when law and justice were overlooked. So I'd say that, okay, consider the case of recent encounter killings, for example. Encounter killings show that many of us have actually lost our faith in the justice system, where we don't believe in law and order anymore, where we don't believe that law and order actually works. So now that's why, because of our loss of faith in the judicial system, we are actually encouraging acts of encounter violence from the police, from the police force. And I'll actually say that, okay, this indicates that this is the context in which I'm going to actually frame the discussion. And then the arguments I'll give is that law and justice are civilizational goals. That is what has kept us from being an animal race where we destroy everything. It is what has allowed us to prosper and cooperate. Without law and justice, there can be no cooperation, and without cooperation, man will not thrive. So once you say that, you can basically conclude in saying that all of these activities which are trying to devalue the value of justice and law and order in our life is bad. So that would be one flow. Another flow would be that if I say law and justice, I can connect it to the social justice movement that is going on in the US. For example, say Black Lives Matter. There you have a kind of a face-off between law and justice. In what is the way the law enforcement officers are working is essentially very unjust to a minority. So now you have a kind of a like a something that is supposed to work together are working opposed to each other. Now you can consider that connected to that particular context and say that law and justice need to work together. You cannot have laws that are unjust, and you cannot have social justice movements which break laws. They need to actually, both goals need to go hand in hand, otherwise man will suffer. So you have, once you have a concrete context, you know exactly how to reframe that particular argument, and then you have a conclusion in mind that, okay, law and justice need to work together. Laws cannot be framed such that they are unjust to a minority, and injustice to a minority cannot be fought back by breaking laws. So once you have something like that, then the entire essay will become coherent. Think of your context, think of something that you can actually write about, connect it to whatever context you want. But once you have the context, have the conclusion, then go back and write the context and write the arguments. That is what I would suggest. I want you guys to actually write a proper essay. I'm sure 250 words is more than enough of a limit as such. Most of you guys would be around 150, which is also fine. But try to write a proper essay about this topic. I want grammatically correct, proper full sentences and coherent flow of thought. Proper strong arguments. When you have arguments, when you have 5 arguments, choose 4 arguments that are impactful and strong. Do not write arguments that make no impact, and then have a proper conclusion one way or the other. So show ability to think clearly, decision making ability, and the ability to analyze a situation. If you are able to exhibit that, I'm sure you will crack any interview that you face in the future. So good luck to all of you guys, and especially thank you all of you who have actually tuned in today. And I was not able to answer all of your questions, but I hope that you actually continue practicing like this. Practice this question, practice the previous year's questions, actually write down the essays so that you have more practice. So thank you guys, thank you for tuning in.